Alright, welcome back. Today I'm going to be working on my Mandalorian Heavy Infantry helmet again. So where we left off last time is the helmet has a ridge line that goes down the top. So that's this piece. I have to clean it up a little bit with the grinder, and then we're going to be bending it and welding it onto this helmet here. Onto the top of the helmet, we're going to be welding it and bending it down. Well, probably bending it first, then welding it. But first things first, it's a little off, so I'm just going to come through and just flatten it out a little bit more, just smooth it up. I will be muting for this because the grinding sounds horrible in the microphone. Alright, got that smoothed up. Now I have to shape it to this helmet itself. So I'm going to try to bend it to give it that nice curve. There's a couple different ways I can do that. I have my curve here on my piece of railroad that I could put it on this curve here and hit it and try to get that bend going. I could also put it into the vise and try and bend it, but that puts a lot of stress on the vise, so I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to start here. See what type of bend we can get. Alright, when it comes down, it's going to be straight for this part here. So that part doesn't need any, if any, at all. So I'm actually going to start it a little bit higher. So I can actually go back a little bit more. There we go. coming along pretty good. Ooh, a little too much there. So, how I determine the angle of the curve is pretty much just winging it. I can take it, and if I get this curve perfect on one side, then it'll be off on the other, just because bending metal perfectly like that is kind of a pain with these tools. So, you just get it as close as you can, and then try to bring it, make it a little bit tighter, so when you do jam it on there, it just kind of smooths itself out as it bends. So, a little bit of winging it, a little bit of hope, and a lot of beating on it with the hammer. But that's the nice thing about metal. You can just keep beating on it. Slowly but surely, you'll get there. That's not too bad now. When I am doing this and holding it on there, I'm looking for high spots. So like this spot here, because that's high, I know that's where I want to hit to bring some of that curve out and bring it down a little lower. So now I can see about there again. So we are. You can see we're getting pretty close. things I've seen done in the past too is do a weld and then do another big weld and try to bend it, and another big weld and try to bend it. But that could be kind of a pain to do. Good thing it's tough. It's made of steel. It can take a beating. Yeah, I have a pretty good curve to here up to this point. So I think I'll tack this on either side here and tack it up top here. Weld this out and then kind of beat this into shape. Well, no. Try to adjust this a bit. That actually helped. Decent amount. Let me clamp this. See what it looks like. These clamps are extremely important for helmet making, just holding things in place. One of the other things you can do is drill holes and put pins through them, put screws through them, and then tighten it down. So then everything's held in place. You can even use that to tighten those screws down to kind of push some of the gaps out if you want. I only do that if I absolutely have to, because then you have to go back and clean up all those little holes, which isn't the end of the world, but if at all possible, I'd like to avoid it. cooperating right now. There we go. Okay. I still haven't ground off the weld on the inside, so this clamp is having a hard time gripping onto just the weld. Alright. Let's take a look. So, that has gotten us pretty close. I think I'm going to weld that out, see how that looks. This side's lined up pretty well, so I'll throw a couple tack welds on there to hold it. Then probably undo this side, do a couple big welds. Hopefully that heats the steel up enough that maybe I can tap it back down with the hammer. Worst case scenario, I just do a bigger weld in there and then clean it up and it'll be good enough. All right. My producer in my ear just told me to swap out this Wasteland helmet with the actual 3D printed one that I'm building. So, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. There we go. This ridge line is what we're working on right now. I'll put this one over here. All right. All right, I can do a little tack weld underneath there. All right. Put a couple more on there because I'm going to be trying to kind of beat on this with a hammer, and I don't want that to pop off when I start abusing this thing. That's fit together pretty good right there. Just hitting it in all the places that are attached pretty well. They're lined up pretty well. Another one right here. Well, actually, I'm going to save this one because that's where I'm going to actually put a decent weld, try to put a lot of heat into this piece, so then I can bang that little curve out. Should be able now to take this clamp out. So now here on top, I'm going to do 2 welds on either side of this. But I'm going to try and angle the bead to go more heat into the top. So instead of welding at a 45 or a little high, I'm going to weld a little more to the side and try to heat this piece up so then I can take it to my little plenishing thing that I'm going to hook up right now and hopefully get that shape in there. This is something that I built just out of a piece of oil field pipe and an end cap that gives me a curved thing to beat on. Okay. Let's see how this goes. Worked like a charm. So, I think if I reclamp this, it should be good to tack it. Slipping off, but that did take that curve out. So, let me tack it real quick. Oh, somebody was asking when my Dremel tool piece is supposed to come in, so I can finish up the hammer there with just some like finishing work on it. And it's supposed to be here tomorrow, last I checked, which was a couple days ago. And I was using those new carbide bits. I ended up breaking the internals of the Dremel tool, so I got the parts coming so I can fix it. Okay, I got our ridgeline on there. It's not perfect, there's some gaps, but this is just a cosmetic feature to match the top of that helmet, and you can see how much smaller it is on there compared to what it is on here. We kind of did that on purpose, wanted to make it look a little beefier, but now when I come in and weld this, I can grind it down, get the exact shape that I want, see if the positioning needs to move a little bit. So, alright. That is pretty much dead on. I think that needs to come over a little bit. But now that I got this on here, I can clean up those weld spots and then come through and weld the whole thing. I'll give this 2 more tacks there, 1 tack at the bottom. I'll clean it with the wire wheel and the grinder, which I'll mute for because it sounds horrible. And then I'll be ready to weld the whole thing. Alright, and I throw these little tacks all the way around it there because when you're welding, you're putting a lot of heat into the metal, and metal does weird stuff when it gets hot. So it'll warp and twist around. Even thick steel like this will do that. So, alright, I want to keep the welds as clean as I can, so I want to take off all this powder, as you can see that's on there. I want to take all that stuff off, clean it up a little bit. So, that's what I'll be using this for on the grinder. This big gnarly wheel that shoots little wires out as you're using it is absolutely the most dangerous thing in this shop. That's what the face shield's for. Alright. Alright, I'm going to mute for the grinding. Alright. Got that all cleaned up. You can see now there's none of that powder on there. So, now I'll come through and weld those out. All right. There we go. That should give us a pretty good connection. So I'm just going to be welding in between these tack marks. So tack, I'll weld from there to there, then look at it, then there to there, then here to here, and just back and forth till I get the whole thing welded out. All right. Now the other side. All right. I think I'll skip down now and do this bottom part because I really should clean up the end of these just to get that dust off again. So if I go every other one, I should be able to do that just fine without having to stop and clean it constantly. All right. So, you can see, we've got a couple big ass welds on there. Go back to this side, and I'll do this one here in the middle, clean these up with the grinder, and then finish it up. That's because we're out of wire. Alright. So I guess there's another impromptu loading of the welder. Man, I've gone through a lot of wire these last few days. I guess a couple weeks. Alright, so there's a spool in here that feeds the machine wire, and that spool just ran out. So, we gotta replace it real quick. It's that spool. Here's a brand new one. The whole thing is fed inside there by two little rollers, so I have to pull all this wire out. You can't just load new wire and then push this through. So, there. Now this is empty. Alright, so on this spool, it's crimped over right now so it won't explode and go everywhere, but you undo this wire and then you pull out a little bit of it and you have to thread it through a very small little like metal pipe that goes into those rollers. Then you have to line it up in between those rollers and put it through another little opening, which is the beginning of this cord here. Once you have it there, then you tighten it down. You tighten those little rollers down by hand, and then you should be able to hold it pretty straight and then pull this trigger, and then that'll feed it all the way through. So, we'll see, best case scenario. Once I undo this, okay, now potentially the wire could explode everywhere. Let's hope that doesn't happen. If you give it a little downward bend, sometimes it makes it easier to load. All right. So got it through the first two pretty easy, but the second one is over the top of those rollers, so it's a bit harder. Alright, we got it between the rollers, and we are alright, we're in. So when you hand tighten those little rollers, if you do it, they have little teeth on them. If you do it too tight, then it will actually engrave into your wire as it's going through this, which then gives it essentially little saw teeth, and you really don't want that going through your rubber hose. So that will shorten its lifespan by quite a bit. Alright, so turn it on, and because it is pushing wire through this, you want to hold it as straight as possible so it doesn't have to do anything crazy with the wire as it's pushing it through, because it can push all the way through out here and then you're just screwed. So yeah, you want to look when you're doing it at the wheel, and the wheel was just barely turning, so that means I'm gonna put a little more pressure on that, on those little wheels there. Still not going. All right. All right, I can feel the wire coming through. There we are. All right. Turn our speed back up. So now is when I can look at it. See if I see any teeth marks. And no, I think we're good. All right. Keep welding. All right, we'll finish out this one little section, then clean it and weld the rest. clean it off, I'm going to use the grinder and that wire wheel again. So I am going to mute while I do that, because the grinder sounds horrible. Okay, now to weld up the rest of it. Somehow a bee got in here and won't leave. Oh well. Alright. I think I just blew a breaker. Oh, no, just the power strip. Well, that was right at the end of that weld, so that's going to cause a little spot that's going to have to be filled in later. Yeah, damn it. Oh well, I'll get it when I do the cleanup work on this. Okay, what the hell? Something's up with the wire. It's coming out. I don't know if you can hear it going bah 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 like that. It's coming out not a consistent rate, which is leading to a god-awful weld even for me. Try straightening it out a little bit. Hear that? That's wrong. That it should not be happening. yeah. Welder might be getting too hot. Sometimes these little wire feeds can have issues when they've been run too hard. So I'll give that a little break, I guess. God. All right, well, let's see. All right, you'll know it's still pretty hot if it dries off pretty quickly, which I can already see one side of it drying off. All right, so we got that piece on there pretty well. There's just one more little part that I got to weld, but I want to give the welder a little bit of a break since it's giving me some issues right now. What I really should do is replace this power strip. It's a pretty old power strip. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll give it a break. I'll put it into a different plug and see if that works any better. All right. Well, then the next step, once we get that welded on there and cleaned up just a little bit so it doesn't mess with your hand as you're moving it around, we have to do either side. So the faceplate is going to be one piece coming halfway back to about here in the middle of this, and then this is going to be another piece, the back part. So they're going to join together here, since this front plate fits over the top of the helmet and this back plate goes under. You can see the lip there versus the lip here. So that's why I'll do it in two separate pieces. Plus it's easier than just one. So I got to get a measurement now around this of how much of my steel to cut off to be that front plate that goes on. So I also need to measure down so I know how far to do it, how far to cut down, or how much I need here. And both these helmets are relatively the same size. This one's a little bit bigger with slightly different measurements, but we'll use this as our template. So take some measurements and take some notes. All right, so first thing, we'll measure around halfway. Nice soapstone here. About 14, so 7 should be our midpoint. And this will be a good test if I got this thing centered. It's not super important that this is perfectly centered, since we're going to be grinding it down and grinding and thinning it up anyway. We just would grind on one side a little bit more than the other, and that'll bring it center. But we want it close. And, well, that's almost exactly the same. It's just a hair over 14 on this side. So for our purposes, 7 again is going to be good enough. Alright, so that should be the midpoint on either side. I can already see some areas I'm going to have to work on here. We'll make that the back. Alright, so it should be, again, this should be 14. But I like extra measuring. And it's a hair over 14 just because of the rise in the bridge piece here. So that did add a little bit, but essentially it's 14. What's that? 14 and a quarter. Yeah. 14 and a half is what we have now with measuring over that nasal. So typically when I'm doing something like this, I want to give myself a little bit extra material. So if we're at 14 and a half, we're going to go to, don't have that necessarily. Yeah, we'll just go to 15. So we'll have to cut a piece at 15 inches off our steel. Make a note of that. 15 inches. So then I need to know how tall to cut my steel. So this measurement. So on this helmet, from the top to the bottom is, well, we'll go to the longest part. It's about 7 1/4 inches. A little under. So, again, to give us a little extra, let's go to 8 inches. That'll give us plenty on there to shape it, to fix any issues if it needs to come up or down. That'll just help us kind of troubleshoot it, make sure it's good enough. And we're going to be cutting a lot of steel off this anyway, so adding just an inch on there, not a big deal. So just double check. Going, yeah, we'll go 8 inches. So then just because I'm here and measuring, do the back piece. The back piece looks like it's pretty square all the way around. Like it stays the same distance. So if I measure about at the halfway point, we're at about, let's see, a little less than 4 1/2. So let's check the middle. The middle, yeah, a little less than 4 1/2, and this should be, yeah, a little less than 4 1/2. Okay, so it is a straight piece on the back. It doesn't dip down or do anything funky like that. So for our helmet, since we're at 4 1/2, we'll make ours 5. So this one is 5 inches tall. And then going around again, should be 15. I'm going to keep it at that measurement because we have this part going over the front that we're doing first, and this part that's going to come under the back, so they can overlap inside of each other. On some of the helmets that I've seen online, not this specific one, but, well, this Paz Vizsla's helmet, but not this model. There's a couple different models. Even like the action figure looks different than the TV show, just slightly. But on some of them, there is a little joint there where you can see that one piece meets the other before this goes on. So I think I'm going to stick with that too, just because it's easier. So there will be a little line here where you can see the overlap. It won't blend together quite as much as this does. So, all right. So we'll keep both of ours at 15. That should give us plenty of overlap. I'm probably going to have to cut a little bit of that off, but that won't be a big deal. Also, since I'm going to have to fabricate these big things to go over it, that's going to cover it as well. So, all right, we got our measurements. 8 inches by 15 for the big one, 5 by 15 for the smaller side. So we're going to get those on there. These were the measurements we just took. You can see I got 8 inches by 15 inches, 15 inches by 5 inches. So I'm going to cut these pieces out of my steel over there. And then once I have those pieces, then we start banging them on a rack that I have on the side of the house. I doubt we're going to have time to get to that part anyway, but then I'll be shaping them to a rounded shape to where they fit on the inside there. So, all right. And then once we have that welded on there and it looks like a big riot helmet essentially, because it'll just be a big cover on the front, then I'm going to come in and draw on it where our negatives are, what we're cutting out of it. But I'm going to leave the T-visor alone so the front faceplate has some strength to it as I'm manipulating it and moving it around. But these cheeks I'm going to cut out. So I'll draw out and cut out the shape of the cheeks, which starts the next nightmare part of this project. That's the cheek. That's how many different pieces go into just one of those cheeks. These here, you can see all the different pieces in there that I'm going to have to cut out. Each individual one is not, I don't know if you can see it, but this piece is not a flat piece. It's flat here, but then rolls into this piece down there and then rolls into the joint, which meets up here. So it's not a flat piece, it's actually slightly angled. This piece here, this long piece, is slightly angled different as it lays out here and then flattens out. So it's actually twisted slightly. Same thing with this piece. The angle up here shifts and then comes straight down, even though it's just one piece in there. And this piece is actually rounded because it follows along with that. It's actually rounded up there. I think this is the only flat piece. And even there, right down in here, this flat piece rolls off and tapers down to a point. So there's a lot of really nightmare little angles in there. There's so many just nightmare little angles that they have in this. I'm not building Paz Vizsla's helmet. I'm not building his exact one. I'm building a helmet inspired off of it. So I'm going to have this cool looking pain in the ass cheek plate, but it's probably not going to have this very slight roll to it, this little fold in, this very, little taper. It's not going to have that. It's going to be nice, square, sharp angles, because I like those, as you saw with the hammer. I like sharper angles rather than rounded. So, just for my own sanity, I will be making a template off of this. I'm going to pull a template off of here, which is just putting pieces of paper on there, drawing it in, and just cutting out like little pieces. So for the cheeks, I'm going to cut out a bunch of individual pieces, weld them together, adjust the angles, tack them together, adjust the angles, and then get them just right and weld them, which then I'll have to do an exact mirrored one for that side, so it's going to be a pain just on its own. So then, once I have those cheeks in there to give this support, then I'll cut the T-visor part out, because then I have to add these internal braces in here to give it that thickness. And then, that will give me this inside. The inside will finally look like that. It won't have this little bottom part, but it'll be pretty close. So, that's what's in store for me for the next who knows how long. When those parts get there for my Dremel tool, I'm going to switch back to working on the hammer just to get it finished, but that shouldn't take long. I'd imagine I'll finish that hammer on Wednesday during the long stream day. So, for now, I just have to cut out some steel. So, let's get our steel. Poor cloth tape. I love these tape measures though. These cloth tapes, they work great for measuring around the helmet and everything like that. So, So if you're gonna make like armor, or I'd imagine cosplayers use them too. I guess what I'm doing now is cosplay, battle ready cosplay, solid steel. I know seamstresses and tailors use this stuff too. My wife does a lot of sewing. I may have stolen this one from her. I don't know. All right. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use this piece of steel. I got a piece of steel. Well, somebody gave me that piece of steel a while ago. But it's a little thin, so I don't think I want to use it. Thin's kind of a pain to weld. Easy to shape. Bit of a pain to weld. Alright. Yeah, I failed at preparing for this apparently. I have a big sheet of steel that I want to use for it. That's what I've made other armor out of, but it is tucked in right now behind a bunch of boxes. So I can see it, but I can't pull that whole sheet out. I think it's a 4x4 sheet of steel. I have 2 of them over there. So I'll have to do that next time. I'll get that out off stream because I got to move a bunch of stuff around to get to it. But I'll get that out. So Wednesday, because tomorrow I'll be working on some of the stuff that I plan on selling at like farmers markets and that. So I think I'm going to be building a jig tomorrow. So something to attach 2 little pieces to that I can take round stock like this, clamp it on one end, and then bend it around. I have some pipe out there, so bend it around and then clamp it on the other part of the jig, and then bend that part around, so it gives me that perfect little S shape that they use in a lot of like the art or for hanging things, or you know, have a couple of those little twirlies holding a pot, like a plant pot up. There's a bunch of different designs. Oh, I actually have them in my little book here. There. So doing little like the little, if I'm doing like a plant holder that goes like bolts to the side of a wall or a barn or whatever, you do just a little 90, and then one of those S's in the bottom of it, and then either another S or kind of an opposite one coming out of the top there, to do like a bookshelf brace. Then you just do the same 90, and then you put that just on the interior of it, and then you drill your holes. The hooks that go on the walls that just come out, just a simple hook, just an S hook for hanging on either an eyelet or something like that to bring your plant down a little bit. I saw a coffee mug holder thing that was kind of shaped like that. But tomorrow I want to build the jig, so a piece of flat steel with a bunch of holes drilled in it, and then I'll take a piece of pipe, cut it off short, weld a bolt into that, and then on the bottom underneath this I stick it on there and then tighten that nut on the bottom, and that holds the whole thing. It holds it there, so that'll be my anchor point. And then no matter where I put the second one, gives me, is it going to be a long S, or if I do it there, then it'll be kind of a short little S curve. I can also bend it halfway and then flip it over on the other one and then bend the rest of it that way to give it kind of a different shape like that, put a little joint in the middle of it. So having this jig will allow me to do, well, they'll all be uniform for one, but it'll also allow me I'll be able to not mass produce, but be able to be able to pound them out a lot quicker. So that I think is what I'm going to be working on tomorrow. Is that jig, which shouldn't be too hard. Hopefully. Hardest part on that is going to be in order, because I'm going to have those nuts on the bottom of it to tighten it up. I'm going to have to make little feet for it so it actually sits up off the ground just because it has it there. They'll be short feet, but yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. So right now though, let's see if the welders had enough of a break that I can finish these just last 2 welds. Yeah, that went much better. Giving it a little break helped. Okay. All right. So now that that's on there, now I can grind it and start getting that shape in there to make it match a little bit better with that, which will be nice. So there's some areas, that's where it was skipping around, so it did not get a good weld there. So I know that once I grind this back to give it more of that look, I'm gonna have to re-weld a couple parts of this to fix it. Similar thing that I'm doing on the hammer right now to just clean it up. Yeah, and here's where it ran out of wire and left a big old hole. So that's the same thing. When I grind it back down, I'm gonna have to re-weld that to fill that in. But we have a shape. We have our first set of detail. As soon as I bring that plate out, I'll probably bring that plate out sooner rather than later. Maybe Wednesday I'll take a break from the hammer, or if I finish the hammer early, which I might, then I can cut those two pieces out and start shaping those to fit in here. Because I have a shaping little rack that I use for doing that, and it's on the side of the house, so I'll bring that out. So I'll have even more tools packed in my massive shop space here. So we'll get another quench for you. So I'm going to start cleaning up here pretty soon. If anybody has any questions, I do have somebody in my ear that can read them to me, so I actually can answer them while I'm not looking at the screen doing other stuff. I keep my laptop behind a screen, protecting it from shooting sparks and everything else. I don't think a shop environment's very healthy for a laptop. So, alright, there you go. That's what we got so far. Baby steps. Alright, what time is it? Alright, got about 10 minutes. I'm going to start cleaning things up, getting things organized, getting ready for tomorrow. So, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Questions, comments, suggestions, insults, whatever works. Engagement is engagement, right? Oh, another thing. I went back and I was watching Mandalorian, and this hammer, the one that I was modeling this off of, she so far hasn't used it for armoring at all, which is what I was complaining about while I was building it. She does use, however, a much smaller hammer, almost exactly this size. It doesn't have the peening end on the back, it has just a straight end. But I have this old peening hammer with a wood handle, so I think I might make, like I'm making this one, I might make a smaller one that I would actually use quite a bit for just armoring around here. You could see earlier when I was pounding on that, I was using a peening hammer, just a metal handled one. So I'll make one out of the same sucker rod handle so it actually matches. So I'll have a pair like she has. So, research. So I'll be doing a second hammer. Thought about doing an axe too, because I have an old axe head on the side of the house. Well, a hatchet that I haven't really done anything yet. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I got a lot more to do on that helmet. That's going to be a long project. Oh, how long the helmet will take? God, I don't know. Since it's my very first time making one of these, I can't tell you. I don't know what problems I'm going to run into. The cheeks alone are going to take forever to do because there's just so much small, like, little fine tuning to get the angles right. Because once I cut this shape out of the faceplate, I'll have that shape to work with that I have to fill in. But as I'm doing these all together and getting them at the right angles, then I have to make sure that I'm matching up here. The way to kind of get away with that is these three pieces that actually meet the faceplate, you make them a little bit longer. So if it's a little out or a little in, doesn't really matter. As long as all of them match, then you tack weld them all in, and then you just grind and cut all that extra off, so then it matches. If you do that on one side, though, you have to do it on the other. So that's where a lot of the problem is going to come in, is because I'm going to have to make both those faceplates, try to mirror them perfectly, then put them both in, take measurements on the inside to see, because if one side's sticking way in and the other side's out further, that's going to look weird and be very uncomfortable to wear. So I'll have to match them up that way, and it's all stuff like that just eats time, because you have to sit there and look at it, think about it. You weren't thinking about it that way before, so now you do, and it's that stuff that catches you. Just hammering it out and doing that, you can see that wasn't too bad. These Corinthian helmets that I've built before, God, this is mine. This is my second one, so I built two of these just for myself. I built my wife's, and then me and a couple other people have probably built a dozen other ones for different people. And these, because I've made these so much, easily can make one of these in a weekend. We were banging out about two of them every weekend, because there's a lot of things that you can do at the same time with both of them just to make it a little bit quicker. So yeah, a helmet that I have a lot of experience doing can make it pretty quick, because I know the issues with this. I know the problem areas. I know the things to reinforce and things to do better next time. This one, I'm going in blind. I have no idea. So that was a long answer saying nothing. I have to go back to Home Depot, buy more wire. That was my last spool. getting close to the end. All right. Yeah, those welds turned out better than some of my previous ones. Oh, another little project I was going to do to go with that helmet was I made this a long time ago just out of a piece of stainless. It's not a real knife. It doesn't have a real edge on it. It's just ground in there as like a prop. I was going to an event where you had to have, you know, little weapons and that on you, and I just made this just down and dirty really quick. But what I was thinking about doing was cleaning it up a bit, bringing this back, actually making it look a little more like an actual knife. And then I have some Kydex, which is that heavy duty plastic that they do like holsters and stuff like that out of, and putting some brackets on there and some kind of techie looking pieces and make it into a vibro knife like that Paz uses. His is kind of a long bayonet looking thing, but you know, the like Din Djarin's Mando, his is pretty short. His is closer to this length, if not a little bit smaller. So just make my own little vibro knife to go with my helmet, and then someday, eventually, a full set of armor. Which I haven't even started sketching out the armor yet, but that's in the works, just way down the road. So I think it'd be pretty awesome to be armoring in here with my helmet, the full armor on, using the hammers. And that might actually get some views. But that's a lot of work. But that's good work. It's fun work. I have a few other little projects to work on too. So that's, I think, what I'm going to be doing in the future. Well, now, starting this week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'll be working on like this Mandalorian stuff and a lot of the cosplay stuff and those projects. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll be working on more of the farmer's market type stuff, the plant holders, the little models, like these little tanks and that, you know, stuff that you'd see kind of on a spread at a farmer's market, the craft fair type stuff. So eventually, when I actually build up a stock, I can go and start selling that and actually make some money. But I think that's our time. So, all right. Stream will be ending soon. I'll still be in chat for a little bit. If you have any questions, just hit me up. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow.